Ethan Cole had spent most of his adult life studying stars, planets, and strange life forms that lived far beyond Earth. To him, the universe was a giant library, and every planet was a new book waiting to be opened. He worked as a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien species and their environments. People often told him his job sounded exciting, but Ethan always felt like adventure avoided him. Most of his days were filled with research notes, long scans, and quiet nights inside his small research ship. Never once did he imagine that fate was preparing something extraordinary for him. Ethan had been assigned to a research outpost near the border of the Illyri Empire. The Illyri were known for their advanced technology and mysterious culture, but humans had only limited contact with them. Most of what Earth knew came from distant scans and rare diplomatic meetings. Ethan did not expect to meet one, let alone visit their world. He simply wanted to gather data on the strange glowing plants that grew on a nearby moon. That morning, the sky outside his shuttle glowed with soft blue light from the nebula nearby. It looked like a giant cloud of paint floating in the darkness of space. Ethan loved the view. It reminded him why he chose this job. He prepared his equipment, set the ship on an automatic path toward the survey location, and leaned back with a relaxed sigh. He felt comfortable, because only moments later, a sudden tremor shook the entire ship. A loud warning flashed across the control screen. Ethan shot forward, grabbed the controls, and tried to stabilize the ship. The navigation system began to flicker, as if a strange energy was interfering with it. "What is happening?" he whispered, checking readings again. The system showed a wave of unknown energy spreading across the area. It wasn't harmful, but it was strong enough to confuse the ship's guidance computers. Before he could correct the path, the shuttle dropped into the upper atmosphere of a green and gold planet below. The ship began shaking more violently. Ethan tried every button he could reach, fighting to control the descent, but the craft continued to fall. Pulled downward by gravity and guided by nothing more than luck, he braced himself as the shuttle crashed through thick clouds. Heat built up around the hull from friction, and sparks flew from damaged panels. Ethan knew he could not stop the ship from landing, but he could try to guide it into a softer crash. He activated emergency landing gear. The shuttle hit the ground with a heavy thud, sliding across a field of tall, glowing plants before grinding to a stop. The lights dimmed, and silence followed. Ethan stayed still for a moment, his heart pounding. He checked himself: no injuries, no fractures, nothing bleeding. He let out a long breath of relief. "I'm alive," he whispered. But he was definitely not alone. Strange shadows were moving outside the cracked windshield. Figures stepped closer, their shapes unfamiliar. Ethan's first instinct was to get his translation device and step out slowly. He did not want to surprise whoever or whatever had approached. He carefully opened the shuttle door. Cool air rushed inside, carrying a soft, sweet scent from the glowing plants. Ethan stepped out and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. That was when he saw her. Standing at the front of the group was a figure, unlike any he had seen before. She was tall and graceful, her skin shimmering with soft blue and violet light. Her hair, long and flowing, looked almost like thin strands of glowing crystal. Her eyes were bright, calm, and strangely kind. She did not look dangerous. She looked curious. Ethan's translation device activated automatically, projecting her language into words he could understand. "You are injured?" she asked, stepping closer with calm confidence. "I'm fine," Ethan replied softly, amazed by her appearance. "Just a rough landing." The device translated his words, but it added a slight alteration due to the unfamiliar dialect. Instead of saying "I'm fine," it interpreted his polite tone as a sign of trust and loyalty in her culture. The device then translated his sentence into something closer to, "I place myself in your care." The alien woman's eyes widened for a moment. Then she smiled gently. "I accept your trust," she said, placing her hand over her heart in a gesture. Ethan assumed it was polite. He thought it was simply her way of saying she would help him. He had no idea that the gesture had a deep, personal meaning among her people. Her name, she told him, was Zirilla, a princess of the Illyri royal family. She explained that she had been patrolling the area when she noticed a strange object falling from the sky. When she discovered it was a human ship, she came to investigate immediately. She spoke with calm authority, but she also seemed fascinated by Ethan. She studied his clothes, his equipment, even his hair. Ethan felt a little embarrassed, but he reminded himself that he must seem just as strange to her. "You are very different from the records. Smaller than I expected, but your eyes, they show honesty." Ethan wasn't sure if that was a compliment, but he smiled politely. Her guards stayed at a distance, watching quietly. They seemed respectful toward her and cautious around him. Ethan didn't blame them. He was suddenly aware that he was standing among aliens with no idea of their customs. Zirala extended her hand toward him. "Come," she said gently. "You must rest. I will take you to safety." Ethan hesitated only a moment. His ship was damaged, and he needed help. He nodded and stepped toward her. The translation device misinterpreted his nod again. In Aleri culture, nodding during a moment of offered guidance was considered a direct acceptance of a personal bond. To them, it was more than agreement. It was a promise to trust someone deeply. The guards exchanged surprised looks. Zirala's eyes softened, as if touched by his response. Ethan, however, simply thought she wanted to help him recover. He followed her through the glowing fields. The plants shone softly under their feet, lighting the path like natural lanterns. Zirala walked with elegance, and Ethan noticed how the guards moved around her. He was clearly trained and disciplined. As they walked, Zirala spoke about her world. She explained that the energy field around the planet sometimes caused trouble for ships, even Ilari ones. Ethan listened, fascinated by everything she said. Her voice had a smooth, melodic tone, and her expressions were gentle and attentive. She led him to a floating vehicle shaped like a crescent. When they stepped inside, it rose into the air with no sound. Ethan looked out through the transparent walls at the beautiful landscape, below golden forests, shimmering lakes, and floating crystal-like structures that reflected the sun. "This place is incredible," Ethan said softly. Zirala smiled again. "I am glad you think so. It brings me joy that you accept my world." Ethan did not understand why she seemed so pleased by his simple comment. He only thought she was being friendly. The vehicle carried them to a large citadel that rose like a shining tower in the distance. It glowed with patterns of light that slowly shifted like moving water. Ethan stared in awe. He had never seen architecture like it. When they arrived, several attendants rushed forward. Their eyes widened when they saw Zirala guiding Ethan by the arm. They whispered among themselves, exchanging curious looks. Some even bowed toward Ethan. Ethan grew confused. Why are they bowing at me?" he whispered to Zirala. "They show you respect," she replied calmly. "It is expected." He assumed it was because he was a visitor from another species. He had no idea the truth was far more complicated. Zirala guided him into a spacious room with soft light and comfortable seats. She instructed attendants to bring warm food and soft blankets. Ethan felt grateful. The crash had left him tired as he sat down. Zirala placed her hand gently on his shoulder in a reassuring way. "You are safe with me," she said. "You have given your trust, and I will honor it." Ethan smiled politely, unaware that in her culture, this private moment, combined with his earlier gestures, meant something far deeper than he realized. He thought he had simply found a friend, Zirala, thought he had accepted a bond, and so, without either of them fully realizing it, the misunderstanding that would shake the entire Ilari Empire had already begun. Ethan woke up to the soft sound of gentle chimes. At first, he thought it was his alarm on the research ship, but when he opened his eyes, he found himself lying on a large, comfortable bed made of smooth, glowing material. The ceiling above him looked like a moving sky filled with soft colors. He blinked, confused for a moment, before remembering the crash, the glowing fields, and Princess Zirala, who had brought him here. He let out a slow breath. Everything felt unreal. He sat up carefully, noticing that the room around him was warm and peaceful. Strange flowers that looked like tiny lanterns floated in glass bowls, giving off a calming light. A gentle current of fresh air flowed through the space, carrying a pleasant scent. Ethan moved his legs off the bed, stretching. His body felt much better thanks to the rest. As he stood, the door opened with a soft hum, and a tall attendant stepped inside. The attendant's skin shimmered like polished stone, and their long robes flowed behind them as they approached Ethan. "Good morning, honored consort," the attendant said politely. Ethan froze. "What did you call me?" he asked. The attendant smiled warmly. "Honored consort, Princess Zirala has informed us of your bond." Ethan blinked rapidly, confused. "Bond? No, I think something is wrong." "I'm not," but before he could finish, the attendant gently motioned for him to follow. "The princess will explain everything when she arrives. She asked that you be brought to the morning hall." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. He wanted to correct the misunderstanding then and there, but he suddenly realized how little he understood their culture. Maybe consort meant something like guest of honor or protected visitor. He hoped so. He followed the attendant through the hallways of the citadel. The interior was beautiful smooth walls with soft glowing patterns. Floors that looked like polished glass but felt soft under the feet. And tall windows showing breathtaking views of distant mountains and the glowing forests everywhere he walked. Ilari's staff whispered and bowed politely. Some even smiled at him as though greeting a new member of the royal family. Ethan felt more awkward with every step. Finally, they reached the morning hall, a large open space with floating platforms arranged like seats. A long table of shimmering stone sat in the middle, covered with colorful fruits and dishes. Zirala stood on the far side, speaking with two older advisors. When Ethan entered, she turned instantly, her eyes brightening. "You are awake," she said warmly, walking toward him. "I was worried you might feel discomfort." "I'm all right," Ethan replied, appreciating her kindness. "Thank you for helping me yesterday," Zirala smiled in a pleased, almost touched way. "Your gratitude honors me." Ethan noticed the advisors behind her exchange looks as if they were witnessing something important. He grew uneasy. Zirala gestured for him to sit beside her on one of the floating seats. Ethan sat, though his mind kept repeating the word the attendant had used, consort. He cleared his throat. "Princess Zirala, I think there's a small misunderstanding. People here keep calling me consort." Zirala tilted her head slightly. "Yes, it is the correct term." Ethan opened his mouth, then slowly closed it again. "Try not to panic. I'm not sure I understand what it means in your culture," he said carefully. The princess looked thoughtful. "To us, it describes someone who has accepted personal trust and companionship with a royal. You offered acceptance yesterday when you spoke kindly and nodded during my invitation to guide you. In our tradition, those gestures carry deep meaning." Ethan's heart almost stopped. He had nodded simply to show agreement, not to accept any kind of bond or relationship. But he could see that the cultural misunderstanding ran far deeper than he had expected. I mean, in my culture, nodding doesn't mean something so important," Ethan said softly. Zirala studied him for a moment, her expression calm and patient. "I understand that your customs may differ," she said gently. "But among my people, the gestures you made have already been witnessed. They cannot easily be undone. For now, the attendants believe you are under my protection and care. They will treat you with high respect." Ethan gently rubbed his forehead. "I didn't want to cause trouble." "You have not caused trouble," she said with a reassuring smile. "If anything, your presence has brought joy to many. Our people rarely meet humans. You show kindness and calmness. It reflects well on both our worlds." Ethan felt some relief, though the confusion still lingered. The breakfast was brought out by attendants carrying floating trays. The food looked colorful and beautiful soft fruits that glowed faintly. Warm bread-like foods that smelled sweet and drinks that changed color when stirred. Ethan tasted one fruit, surprised by the gentle, refreshing flavor. Zirala watched him closely, though not in a strange way. It was more like she was curious about how a human experienced her world after breakfast. Staff members approached with more bows and whispers. One attendant presented Ethan with a folded robe made of soft, shimmering fabric. "This is for you," the attendant said. "A gift from the royal tailor. Please accept it as a symbol of harmony." Ethan held the robe uncertainly. "Thank you," he said, unsure what else to do. Zirala nodded approval. "They will be pleased you accepted." Ethan realized that even simple gestures here were taken very seriously. He mentally reminded himself to be extremely careful with expressions, nods, and words. After the meal, Zirala guided him through the citadel so he could understand more about their customs. She showed him the gardens, where flowers floated in midair like small stars. She led him through learning halls where young Ilari practiced peaceful arts, and into a quiet chamber, where glowing crystals recorded songs and stories of their ancestors. Everything amazed Ethan. Every corner of the citadel was filled with grace and beauty, but everywhere they went, people looked at him with respectful curiosity. Some whispered things like, "The princess chose well," or "The human is gentle." Others bowed low when Zirala walked beside him, seeing their closeness as proof of a bond. Ethan felt heat rise to his face. He kept trying to hint to Zirala that maybe this whole misunderstanding should be explained soon, but every time he tried, she gently redirected the conversation. She wasn't ignoring him. She just didn't seem worried at all. In her eyes, everything was unfolding naturally. Later in the day, they arrived at a balcony overlooking the golden forests below. A gentle breeze brushed past them. Zirala stood beside Ethan, her expression thoughtful. "I know this situation may feel confusing," she said softly, "but I want you to know that you are safe here. No one here will judge you harshly. Our customs may be unfamiliar to you, but they are filled with kindness." Ethan nodded slowly. "I appreciate that. Truly, I just worry about giving people the wrong idea." Zirala's voice softened. "Let time guide the truth. If there is a misunderstanding, it will become clear. For now, let us learn from each other." Ethan could not argue with that. After all, he had crashed on their world, and she had saved him. He owed her gratitude. She was doing her best to help him feel welcome. As they stood in the warm breeze, Ethan finally relaxed. Maybe things weren't as complicated as he feared. Maybe the misunderstanding would fade naturally as everyone learned and more about him. But he had no idea that the whispers in the palace were growing louder by the time the sun set. The attendants, guards, and even advisors had started treating Ethan not just as a guest, but as someone extremely important. Some believed he might play a key role in the future of the royal family. Others thought his arrival was a sign of destiny, and far above the citadel, deep in the shining royal chambers, someone else had heard the rumors too. The Queen of the Ilari. Umpire Zirala's mother was already on her way home, and she was not coming quietly. The Ilari citadel was calm when the morning sunlight touched its crystal-like towers, but that calmness was only on the surface. Beneath it, in the busy halls and quiet chambers, whispers were spreading faster than gentle wind. Attendants talked softly as they carried trays. Advisors exchanged curious looks, and guards tried to stay serious while quietly sharing rumors. All the talk was about one thing, or rather one person. The human Ethan had been in the palace for only a short time, yet every Ilari he passed looked at him with the same mix of curiosity and interest. Many had never seen a human before. Others were excited by the idea of a possible bond between Princess Zirala and someone from another species. They did not see trouble or confusion, they saw something new and full of hope. Ethan, meanwhile, was completely unaware of how far the situation had grown. He was sitting in a peaceful room, filled with floating books, when Zirala stepped inside. She wore a calm, relaxed expression. But there was something in her eyes. Secret knowledge she seemed hesitant to share. "You look deep in thought," she said, her voice gentle. Ethan smiled awkwardly. "I'm trying to read one of these books, but they keep changing pages on their own." Zirala let out a soft laugh. "They respond to the reader's thoughts. If your mind wanders, so do they." "That explains a lot," Ethan said with a chuckle. She walked over and sat beside him, keeping a respectful distance, but still close enough for Ethan to feel her presence. There was always something soothing about her energy, something warm and calm that made conversation feel easy. "You seem more comfortable today," she observed. "I'm trying," Ethan admitted. "Everyone here has been incredibly kind. I still worry about this misunderstanding. Zirella glanced down for a moment, her expression thoughtful. I understand. I know our customs may make you feel uncertain, but we have time to speak with the Queen. She will help guide the situation. Ethan nodded. Not fully sure what that meant, but grateful for her patience. Before he could ask more, an attendant rushed into the room, bowing quickly. Princess Zirella, the attendant said with wide eyes. The Queen's ship has been sighted. She is arriving earlier than expected. Zirella straightened, surprise flickering across her face. So soon. She murmured, Yes, Princess, the attendant confirmed. She seems eager to return. Zirella offered a calm nod, but Ethan could see a tiny hint of tension beneath her serene expression. When the attendant left, Ethan looked at her with concern. Is everything all right? Yes, Zirella said softly. My mother is a wise and thoughtful ruler. But she also takes her responsibilities very seriously. She will want to understand everything that has happened since my last report. And, does she know about me? Ethan asked. Zirella hesitated for just a moment. She has heard. Some things. Ethan felt a tiny jolt of worry. What kind of things? Zirella folded her hands together gently. Rumors spread quickly in the palace. My mother may believe you, and I share a deeper connection. Ethan let out a small breath. Oh. It wasn't anger or fear he felt. It was more like a nervous flutter in his chest. He had known this misunderstanding would eventually reach someone important, but he didn't expect it to happen so soon. Zirella offered him a reassuring smile. Do not fear. My mother is reasonable. She will speak with us directly. Her calm tone helped, but Ethan still felt his heart speeding up. Meeting the queen of an alien empire wasn't something he had trained for. Zirella gently placed her hand near his, not touching, but close enough to offer comfort. I will be beside you. That simple promise eased some of his worry. They walked through the citadel together. Along the way, attendants and guards stepped aside, bowing respectfully. Zirella maintained her calm, graceful posture. But Ethan could feel himself growing more and more nervous. They reached a large open balcony that served as a landing area for Illyri's ships. Dozens of attendants stood waiting. Soft lights glowed beneath their feet, forming a welcoming path. A shimmering silver ship slowly descended from the sky. It moved with elegance, almost like it was floating on air rather than powered by engines. When it touched down, soft breeze swept across the balcony. The ship's door opened. Out stepped Queen Thalara. She was taller than Zirella, with an air of serenity that carried authority without harshness. Her skin glowed with deeper colors than her daughter's soft purples and deep blues that shimmered like starlight. Her eyes, a bright crystalline silver, scanned the balcony calmly. She moved with poise and confidence. Every step filled with grace only a practiced ruler could hold. Zirella bowed respectfully. Mother, she said softly. Queen Thalara placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. It is good to see you safe, Zirella. Then her eyes moved past her daughter toward Ethan. Her calm expression shifted slightly. Not anger, not fear, but unmistakable confusion. She approached Ethan slowly. Her presence quiet yet commanding. Ethan swallowed hard and bowed politely. It's an honor to meet you. The queen studied him carefully. Her gaze wasn't sharp. It was curious, thoughtful, even a little surprised. She seemed to be evaluating not just his appearance, but his sincerity. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but filled with authority. Human, she said. I have been told that you share a special bond with my daughter. Ethan felt his face heat up instantly. Your Majesty, I think before he could finish. The queen gently raised a hand, signaling for patience. I have traveled far and returned early because the palace is full of unusual whispers. She continued calmly. They say the princess has chosen a companion from another species. They say you have already accepted this bond. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle heavily in the air. Zirella stepped forward slightly. Mother, the misunderstanding is not his fault. Ethan looked at her gratefully. Queen Thalara glanced at her daughter, then back at him. Finally, she asked in a steady voice, Human, why does my daughter call you her companion? Zirella opened her mouth, but Ethan gently lifted a hand. "It's all right," he whispered to her. She nodded, stepping back respectfully. Ethan took a calm breath. "Your Majesty," he began softly, "I never meant to cause confusion. When your daughter helped me after my ship crashed, I simply wanted to show gratitude. But I didn't understand your customs. My gestures and even my words were misunderstood." The Queen listened without interrupting. Ethan continued, carefully choosing each word. "In my culture, nodding or accepting help doesn't mean forming a deep personal bond. I didn't know it carried that meaning here. I respect your traditions, but I never meant to make promises I didn't understand." The Queen's expression softened just slightly. "You speak with honesty," she said. "This I can see." Zirella stepped forward again. "Mother, he has acted kindly and with good intentions." Queen Thalara looked between them, her silver eyes thoughtful. "I believe you both," she said finally. "But misunderstandings in a royal household can grow quickly. Many in the palace think this bond has already been accepted. It will take careful guidance to correct or confirm the truth." Ethan grew pale at the word confirm, but before he could reply, the Queen added, "We will discuss this further as a family." Ethan blinked family. He suddenly realized something important. The Queen wasn't angry. She wasn't accusing him. She wasn't threatening him. She was trying to understand, and yet the misunderstanding was now much bigger than he ever imagined. As they walked back into the palace together, Ethan felt a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Beside him, Zirella walked with quiet confidence. As though trusting the situation would unfold peacefully, the Queen walked ahead of them. Calm and elegant, but clearly deep in thought. Ethan couldn't help wondering what she was thinking, and how far this misunderstanding would go. Before the truth finally came out, because now the entire Ilari Empire was involved. Ethan followed Queen Thalara and Princess Zirella through the long crystal hallway, feeling both nervous and curious at the same time. The air around him hummed softly with energy, and the walls glowed in gentle waves of color, shifting from blue to lavender. The citadel always felt alive, almost like it breathed with its people. But today the atmosphere felt different. Everyone they passed bowed deeper than usual, whispered more softly, and watched Ethan with extra attention. The Queen's early return had stirred the palace. Ethan walked carefully beside Zirella. Every now and then she looked at him, her expression calm, as if silently telling him that everything would be all right. They entered a quiet chamber, where soft light fell from the ceiling like morning sunshine. Cushioned seats floated in a smooth circle, waiting for them. Zirella invited Ethan to sit beside her while the Queen sat across from them, her posture straight yet gentle, for a long moment. The room stayed silent. Queen Thalara finally spoke, her voice soft and steady. "There is no anger in my heart. I simply wish to understand what has happened." Ethan nodded slowly. "Thank you for giving me a chance to explain." The Queen studied him with kind but serious eyes. "Tell me everything from the moment your ship entered our skies." Ethan shared the story again, how the strange energy caused his ship to lose control, how Zirella found him, how he nodded without knowing it, held deep meaning in their culture. Queen Thalara listened, without interrupting once. When he finished, she folded her hands together thoughtfully. "Our customs are shaped by many years," she said. "A nod during an invitation of guidance is considered a strong sign of trust, and trust, in our tradition, is the beginning of a bond." Ethan sighed gently. "I didn't know. I truly meant only respect." Zirella turned toward her mother. He spoke sincerely. "His heart carries no intention to mislead."
Oh.
The Queen nodded. "I believe this." Ethan felt a wave of relief, however. The Queen was not finished. "Still," she continued, "the palace already sees this as something meaningful. Many believe the princess has chosen you to stand beside her. If this is not true, it must be clarified with patience." Ethan felt warmth rise in his cheeks. "I don't want anyone to misunderstand." Queen looked at him with calm understanding. "A misunderstanding sometimes becomes an opportunity, but I do not expect you to accept something without understanding it." Zirella lowered her eyes slightly, thoughtful. Ethan noticed a quiet sadness in her expression, though it lasted only a moment. Before anyone could speak again, a soft chime echoed through the room. An advisor entered quickly, bowing. "Your Majesty," he said, "the Harmony Council has arrived for their scheduled discussion. They expected your presence later, but now wish to greet you." Queen Thalara stood with graceful ease. "Very well." She turned to Ethan and Zirala. "I will not be long. I ask that you both stay near. We will continue our conversation after." Zirala bowed her head. "Yes, mother." Ethan also stood respectfully. "I'll wait." After the queen left, the chamber grew quiet. Zirala walked toward the open balcony, and Ethan followed. The golden forests stretched out below them. Glowing softly under the afternoon light, Zirala leaned against the railing, her eyes calm but distant. "I hope my mother did not worry you," she said. "She wasn't unkind," Ethan replied. "That helped a lot. But I do worry about what the palace thinks. I don't want anyone to believe I made promises I didn't understand." Zirala looked at him gently. "You were honest. That is rare and valued here." "It is not wrong to feel uncertain." A soft breeze brushed past them. After a moment of silence, Ethan asked Zirala, "How do you feel about all this? I mean, about the misunderstanding?" Zirala's expression softened. "I believe our meeting had purpose. Even if the meaning was unclear, your presence brought calm and harmony to our people. They see kindness in you." Ethan felt a gentle warmth at her words, but she continued thoughtfully, "I also understand that your customs differ. I do not expect something from you that your heart is not ready for." Ethan appreciated her honesty more than she knew before they could speak further. The sound of chimes echoed again, but this time it was louder and more urgent. Ethan and Zirala turned as an attendant hurried toward them. "Princess." "Human guest." The attendant exclaimed, though still speaking politely. "Something has happened." Zirala stepped forward immediately. "What is it?" "An unexpected energy wave is approaching the citadel. The queen requests your presence in the central hall." Zirala nodded. "We're coming." She turned to Ethan. "Stay close. There is no danger, but the queen may need your knowledge." Ethan nodded, though his heart fluttered nervously. He wasn't used to being needed in royal matters. But he followed Zirala quickly down the hallway. They entered the central hall, where the queen and several advisors stood around a large floating projection showing swirling patterns of energy. The shapes moved like gentle clouds rather than anything dangerous. "Queen." Thalara noticed them and motioned them closer. "This energy wave is unusual," she said calmly. "It appears similar to the one that caused your ship's crash." Ethan examined the projection. "It looks familiar. I think it might be caused by natural energy releases from your planet's atmosphere. These waves don't usually harm anything, they just confuse navigation." Zirala looked relieved. "So it is harmless?" "Yes," Ethan confirmed. "But strong enough to affect any ship."
No.
The queen nodded thoughtfully. "Your knowledge is very helpful." Ethan smiled awkwardly. "I'm glad to help." One of the advisors spoke gently. "It seems the queen was right to bring you into this discussion." Ethan felt his cheeks warm again. Queen Thalara turned to him with a soft expression. "You have given insight we did not have, and you remain calm even when uncertain. These are qualities we value." Ethan wasn't sure what to say, so he simply bowed slightly. Zirala's eyes shone with quiet pride. The queen then addressed them both. "This small matter shows me something important. Even in confusion, you both act with honesty and respect. This is the root of harmony." Ethan listened closely, feeling something shift in the queen's tone. Something warmer, she continued. "This misunderstanding may not be a problem. It may be a chance for two worlds to learn from each other. But the choice must be yours, not the palace's." Zirala glanced at Ethan, waiting for his response. Ethan took a slow breath. "Your Majesty, I want to understand your customs better. I don't want to rush anything or mislead anyone, but I also don't want to leave things unfinished." The queen nodded, satisfied. "Then we go forward with patience." Zirala smiled softly. The queen turned to her daughter. "Take him to the Harmony Gardens. Let him learn more of our ways. When the time is right, we will speak again." Zirala bowed. "Yes, mother." They left the hall together and walked toward the gardens. which glowed with gentle colors as afternoon light slowly faded. Ethan felt lighter now. He had spoken honestly, and the queen had listened. The misunderstanding was still there, but no longer frightening. Instead, it felt like a door gently opening to something new. Zirala looked at him with warmth. "You handled everything with grace." "I just tried my best," Ethan said, smiling shyly. "Sometimes," she replied softly, "that is all that is needed." The two of them continued walking through the glowing gardens, unaware that the most important choice still waited ahead, and that everything between them and the queen was slowly leading to one final moment. Part 5 begins with a strange kind of calm in the Ilari citadel. The attack had ended hours ago, and everything was slowly returning to normal. Soft, glowing lights repaired themselves in the walls. The air smelled of gentle flowers again. The guards who had once been tense now walked with relaxed steps. But Ethan's heart did not feel calm. His thoughts were fast and heavy, like small waves hitting each other during a breeze. He knew a big decision was waiting for him, one that could change his entire life. Queen Thalara had asked him to meet her in the central hall, the same place where he first stood confused and scared when she shouted at him. But now the hall felt different. It was brighter, warmer, almost welcoming. Ethan stood at the center, unsure where to put his hands. Unsure how to breathe normally, unsure of everything except one thing. The moment mattered. The doors opened with a gentle hum, and Queen Thalara entered with grace. She looked tall and powerful as always, but something about her expression had softened. She no longer looked like someone ready to judge him. Instead, she looked like someone ready to listen. Ethan straightened himself, still feeling small in her presence, yet also feeling braver than before. Zirala entered behind her mother, walking with slow, careful steps. Her eyes found Ethan instantly. She smiled in a quiet, shy way, the kind of smile someone gives when they are full of hope but afraid to expect too much. The sight made Ethan's chest warm, and for a second he forgot about his worry. Queen Thalara stopped in front of him and spoke in a calm tone. "Human, you have shown honesty, kindness, and courage during a difficult time." Ethan almost looked over his shoulder to see if she was talking to someone else. He never thought the queen would speak to him with such gentle respect. She continued, "You protected my daughter and my people, not because you wished for reward, but because you cared. I cannot ignore that." Ethan lowered his eyes and answered softly, "I only did what felt right. I did not want anyone hurt." Zirala stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mother has judged you fairly. I told her you were good. I told her you would never let harm come to anyone." Queen Thalara nodded with approval as she faced Ethan. "Because of this, I offer you two choices. Neither is forced. Both are honorable. You may choose the path that gives you peace." Ethan held his breath. This was it. This was the moment he had been worrying about since the misunderstanding began. The queen raised her hand slowly, her voice steady and clear. "The first choice is simple. You may return to your world. I will send you with full honor. You will travel safely, with gifts and records proving our empire respects you. All mistakes will be forgotten. You may live your human life as you wish." Ethan felt a sense of relief, but also a strange ache in his heart as she continued. "The second choice," she said, glancing at her daughter, "is to stay here. You may continue your life among us. You may get to know Zirala with true understanding. Not because of a cultural mistake, but because you choose it with open eyes." Zirala's fingers curled gently at her sides, as if she wanted to reach out but was too shy. Ethan saw hope in her eyes, bright and soft. She did not push him or force him. She simply looked like someone who cared deeply, waiting to see what he would say. Queen Thalara continued, "If you choose to stay, there is no pressure for a bond. You and Zirala may learn about each other in your own time. Friendship is enough. Choice is important. I refuse to let a misunderstanding control your fate." Ethan's shoulders relaxed. He appreciated that more than he could express. He had feared the queen would try to force him into a life he did not fully understand. But hearing her speak like this made him feel respected in a way he had not expected. She ended her offer with a gentle bow of her head. Think carefully. Whatever your choice, you will be welcome." Once she finished, the hall became quiet. The glowing walls hummed softly. Ethan could hear his own breathing and the quiet rustle of Zirla's long, sparkling gown. He knew everyone was waiting for him to speak, but he needed a moment. Ethan closed his eyes and thought back to everything that had happened since the day he crashed. He remembered the moment Zirala found him, carrying him with gentle care, even though he was a stranger. He remembered the palace staff treating him like someone important, even when he felt confused. He remembered how Zirala's eyes would brighten when he smiled, how she listened to him with interest, and how she seemed to understand even when they struggled with each other's words. Most of all, he remembered how, during the danger, she held his hand and whispered that she trusted him. The thought warmed him deeply. It felt real. It felt honest. He opened his eyes and looked at Queen Thalara. She waited calmly, her face unreadable but respectful. Then he looked at Zirala. Her expression was soft and nervous, her breath held. When their eyes met, something inside him settled, like a puzzle piece finally fitting in place. Ethan stepped forward, his voice gentle but steady. "Your Majesty, I came here by accident. Everything that happened was confusing, but through all of this, I have seen kindness, warmth, and understanding from you and your people, and from Zirala. I have seen even more." Zirala's cheeks glowed slightly, her bioluminescent markings shimmering brighter, showing her emotion. Ethan continued, "I don't want to leave that behind so quickly. I don't want to walk away before I understand what this connection could mean. I want to stay not because of a misunderstanding, but because I want to learn more about this world." And about Zirala. Zirala's eyes widened with happiness, and she let out a small breath she had been holding. Queen Thalara's face softened with approval, a peaceful smile touching her lips. "I choose to stay," Ethan said clearly. "I choose to stay here in your world." Zirala took a step closer, joy blooming across her face. "Then you will not be alone. I will help you understand everything. I will show you our ways, and you can show me your human life too." Queen Thalara nodded gracefully. "Then let it be so. You stay as a welcome guest and a respected friend of the royal family. There is no hurry for anything more. Take your time and grow naturally." Ethan felt relief flood through him. This was not a trap, not a binding rule, not a misunderstanding, forcing him into something he wasn't ready for. It was simply a new path he could walk with honesty and freedom. As they left the hall together, Zirala walked beside him, her steps light and happy. She pointed out different parts of the palace that he had never seen, explaining small details of her world with excitement. Every time she looked at him, there was a soft glow in her eyes, like she was proud he chose to stay. Ethan felt something peaceful settle inside him. Maybe this was where he was meant to be. Maybe this strange, glowing palace in a distant corner of the galaxy would become his new home. Maybe the connection he shared with Zirala would grow into something meaningful. Only time would tell, but for once, Ethan felt ready for whatever came next, and as they walked into the bright light of the palace garden, where glowing flowers opened in soft waves, he realized something important. This was no longer an accident. This was a new beginning.